Hello and welcome back to my channel. For this card, I am using the little Dino agenda stamp set from Mama Elephant. I'm also using this fade out ink from Ink on 3, and I'm going to color these 4 dinosaurs to look like chocolates. And to do that, I have E23, E25, and E27. I will say this one was pretty difficult for me, as I really wasn't sure what they would look like, and I've made dinosaur chocolates before. I guess I didn't pay that much attention to them. I tried to keep the shading kind of where the edges were on the bottom, where legs joined together, kind of underneath the face, anywhere that I felt like needed a little bit more detail. It was kind of a struggle, not gonna lie. I will say that the fade out ink, I have heard before that it actually will fade so much that it's hard to see. I have stamped things in fade out ink and left it for multiple days, and there was no change to it. So I'm thinking that might be incorrect, and that the fade out name comes from the fact that when you color over the lines, you no longer see those lines. You actually have to add the detail yourself, or you'll just lose them. Also, for those of you who don't want to suffer the coloring, 2 minutes and 22 seconds is when it stops. It's fairly short today. Now, this card came about in a conversation with a crafty friend. We were talking about doing like monochromatic cards, and I told her that I've done pink before and I didn't think it was that great of a job. I haven't really tried any other colors, and she said maybe purple. I discussed with her that I didn't have a lot of purple markers, and then she asked what colors I did have a lot of. I told her blue and E markers, which are, the earth tones, the browns. And she was like, well, maybe, blue, since that's more interesting. And then I got to thinking what I could do with the E markers. And of course, I could only think of chocolates. And then I thought of dinosaur chocolates. And once that was in my head, that was it. Like, I just had to make the card. But this was a struggle because I'm not great with monochromatic cards. But here I go. All right, so I had an idea, and I have these thin strips of printer paper and this E79 marker. And I am coloring over both sides of this strip of paper. And this strip of paper is maybe 1/4 of an inch. I also have this little square, and I am going to color it with that same marker. So this is just going to be the bottom of a chocolate box. And then this little thin strip, I am folding it accordion style, back and forth, small little sections. And this will be the little wrapper around each chocolate. Now, I did this 4 times, 1 for each dinosaur. I'm going to glue the ends together to make it circular. And then once that is dry, I can separate them out a little bit, and then I can stuff my dinosaurs in there. So I have this Baker's Box die from Spellbinders. And I thought it would be perfect to house my little chocolates. So I have my little dinosaurs popped up on foam tape. I think I did like 6 layers of foam tape or something ridiculous. I really wanted it to look like there was substantial chocolate in there. And I'm going to adhere those down. I keep bringing in my little box just to make sure that I have everything where you can still see it in the window. Now that they're all adhered down, I am going to dot some glue on these little wrapper pieces, and I'm going to wrap them around each dinosaur. Now, these don't have to be glued perfectly in place, as I am going to put the little top over it, so they'll never move once they're in there. I just wanted to make sure that they kind of were in the place they were supposed to be before I attach the top, if that makes any sense. Now here, they're all in place. Kind of reminds me of the little wrappers from Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Now I have this little acetate square I'm going to add to the inside of the lid using some double-sided adhesive. This is score tape. Now I was just checking to make sure it fits. It works. And now I have my little silicone baking mat, my card base, and I am going to use Vintage Photo, walnut stain, and ground espresso distress oxides, and I am going to ink up my background panel. Again, this whole thing is just browns. This was also a struggle for me. I had the idea of what to do with the background, sort of, but then after this part, I just kind of got lost and I wasn't sure what I was doing. I did ink up the whole thing with my lightest brown, and I kept my darker browns around the outside. And now I'm going to smush some of the darker browns onto my stamp block, water them down, and splatter them because I've been loving the splatter lately. Also kind of gives it like a dinosaurs in the dirt feel. I know, my children loved this card, both of them. Boy, Mom. Now I'm gluing the little baker box lid together. And now I'm jumping ahead. I have my dark brown marker again. I am going along the outsides of this brown rectangle that I have cut. And this is just the visible parts after I lay my ink blended background on it. Now I had an idea to do some embossing, heat embossing. So I have my little embossing pen and my white embossing powder. And I first thought, I should probably check, make sure it's dry. It was. And then I thought to do the little sort of icing or chocolate, I don't know what you would even call that, little swirl thing. So I went through it, okay? And before I heat set it, I was like, that looks kind of bad. Maybe I should have tried a little harder with that one. I heat set it, put it up there, and I don't really like it. So this was a fail. This card was difficult. There are days where I really struggle to create something I want. I get an idea, I get excited about the idea, and then I just struggle the whole time. Here, I decided I need things more uniform, so I am taking this diagonal stencil, and I'm just going through and creating the little lines with my embossing pen, making sure to shift it over once I get so far because my rectangle is wider than my stencil. I do heat set this first, though. I didn't want anything to dry or smudge. So going back to it, lining it up as best as I could. It wasn't perfect, I don't think, but I don't think anybody would really notice. Continuing on. At least at this point, I had realized that this would look better than the other one. And the reason I left that first bit in there instead of just pretending like it never happened is so that you guys could see that these things sometimes don't work out. Sometimes I have to switch plans. Sometimes I have an idea and it just doesn't turn out well. All right, for my sentiment, I am going to use Rarsum from the stamp set Rarsum from Lawn Fawn. And I'm also going to use the ampersand from Crazy Antics. So for the top part of my sentiment, I am going to heat emboss it, and it's going to say Rarsum, and I'm using Hero Arts Unicorn Pigment Ink to stamp it with. That way, if there's a little bit of like spots where the embossing powder didn't stick that well, you'd still see some white underneath it. And then I still had to add some little bits of my white gel pen in there to fill in some areas. I'm going to attach it to my little striped panel. It was at this point I had a decent idea of how I would finish the card, so I'm going to attach the lid of my baker's box to the bottom of it. Conveniently, I had this Lawn Fawn brown and white striped string I decided I would tie around the box. I thought it would add a little bit of interest, and it worked out with my little embossed background, my heat embossed background. So that was a happy accident. Was not planned to start with. I am adding a little bit of glue to the knot in the center of my bow, so hopefully it'll stay tied. And I have my Scripty Sweet die, also from Lawn Fawn. I have cut this twice. I'm gluing them together just to add a little bit more dimension. And then I am going to adhere it to my card base. Now at this point I was still trying to figure out if I wanted the sentiment crooked and the box straight, or the box crooked and the sentiment straight. This is what I came up with. Now for a finishing touch, I have this bottle of vintage Nouveau drops in the color chocolate chip, and I'm just adding a little bit of chocolate drizzle to the top of the word sweet. Once I adhere my little chocolate box down, my card is complete. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll be back with another video soon. Bye!